Hey everybody, how's it going? Welcome to the No DQ live recap of Monday Night Raw for May the 25th, 2020. Interesting Raw tonight. A different show from the norm over the past few months because on this show we had, for the first time since the COVID-19 shutdown began, we had an audience. Now, it was not an audience of WWE fans, but rather an audience of Performance Center trainees that were standing outside at the ringside area, and we had plexiglass that was surrounding the ringside area to keep the NXT / Performance Center talents from the people performing on the show. Ken terminated by Google with a $5 super chat, first one of the evening. He says, an audience returning? I bet Tony Khan is thinking, wow, how original. See ya after Raw, Aaron Rift. I knew this was going to be inevitable with people saying, oh, WWE's just copying AEW. And yes, AEW did do it first, but they do not own the copyright for having people in the audience. WWE finally deciding to have people there, and it helped. It certainly helped with the show. Any people in the crowd is a good thing. Any noise, any soundtrack to go along with what's taking place is a positive. And hopefully over time, as restrictions begin to become eased, we'll see more people there in the building, maybe even some fans. One person on Twitter suggested that WWE should look into the idea of maybe having military service people and their families being allowed to attend these shows. I think that's a great idea. I brought up the idea of some super fans being brought in, but some people on Twitter were against that idea. I just think it would be cool, like, because of their passion. If there was one criticism of the fans tonight, the so-called fans, it's that at times it felt manufactured and not authentic reactions. You know, they were probably just instructed to cheer the good guys, boo the bad guys, don't make too much noise. I'd like to have some super fans in there that will react the way many of us would react. Like, think of the shocked Undertaker fan. He would go out there at WrestleMania, and when Undertaker's streak ended, his reaction was how all of us were thinking. We need some people like that at the ringside area to give it a little bit more of an authentic feeling, in my opinion. But I like what WWE did on this show. Definitely a step in the right direction as far as making the shows easier to watch. Tom McCarthy with a $2 super chat says, was I watching Raw or a hockey game? Yeah, the plexiglass definitely gave it a hockey game vibe to it for sure. And thank you, Tom. Psycho Jet Black with a $2 super chat says, those fans would have been silent if EC3 was there. Oh man, you still got it in for EC3. You have to kick the man while he's down. And TJS, Tyler Joseph Smith with a $5 super chat says, the crowd felt unnatural to me, like they had cue cards or something. Also, what's the point of doing the pull-apart brawl if there's no real crowd? Well, I will discuss that later on. There was a pull-apart brawl because there hasn't been one since the pandemic started. So as far as WWE is concerned, it's fair game now that it's been a couple of months. All right, so let's get to this show. I've talked enough about the crowd. We had Kevin Owens start us off with the KO show, and he praised the crowd, gave them some props. Talked about fighting Angel Garza later on the show. Asked the people if they were excited. They reacted. Asuka came out as his guest, and she was bringing up Becky, chanting Becky's name. Charlotte came out, said that the Raw Women's title should have been handed to her, and talked about how Asuka never beat her. Then Natalya came out. It was one of these segments where one person comes out, then another, then another. Natalya apologized for what happened last week where she threw a fit after losing her match and destroying the KO show set pieces. She got some applause from the audience for her apology. Nia Jax came out, said she's going to bulldoze Asuka after winning the Triple Threat #1 Contenders match. Asuka responded by punching her in the face, and there was a huge brawl. Thankfully, this did not turn into the match right after the break. I'm glad WWE saved it for later. I'm just not a fan of when all the people involved in the promo segment have a match right afterwards. So if you're going to have 2 segments with those same people, stretch it out. We had Apollo Crews versus Andrade for the United States Championship. And before the match, Apollo cut a promo saying this was going to be the greatest night of his career, since he's going to beat Andrade and win the title. Zelina Vega interfered or attempted to interfere during the match. She got on the apron, accidentally got knocked off by Andrade. When we came back from commercial, Andrade was checking on her. During the match, Garza was backstage. He was interviewed. He was comparing wrestling to making love. And back in the ring, Apollo Crews, almost out of nowhere, I mean, it was pretty abrupt. He hit the standing moonsault, followed by the standing shooting star press, and 1, 2, 3, pinned Andrade to win his first championship in WWE. The push for Apollo Crews continues. Still no heel turn, but WWE going all the way with him. And great promo from Apollo after the match. Definitely something that made you care about the guy. Talked about how he proved the doubters wrong, and he's been fighting for 11 years and never gave up, and said it feels so good to win his first championship in WWE. So I liked it. Showed a little bit of personality from Mr. Crews. And then we had Andrade backstage throwing a fit, very upset about losing. We had Seth Rollins in a backstage interview, talked about how he's better than he's ever been, thanks to Rey Mysterio, and he had the mask as his trophy. He introduced his newest disciple, Austin Theory. Austin Theory and Murphy cut a little bit of a promo, talked about being underappreciated. Rollins said that the two of them, Murphy and Theory, were going to make examples out of Aleister Black and Humberto. Psycho Jet Black with a $2 super chat, thank you for that, says, what makes Apollo different from Ricochet? They're a little bit different. I mean, Ricochet, I would say, is more of a high flyer. Apollo can do some impressive stuff, but Apollo, a little bit more grounded than Ricochet, if I had to compare the two. Caleb Jacobs with a $3.78 super chat. Thank you for that, Caleb. Says, Apollo Crews' first title in WWE, so proud of him. I agree with that, Caleb. I second that opinion. Very happy for Apollo to finally win a title in WWE after all these years of start and stop pushes. We had Charlotte backstage, talked about being the most consistent and the most prolific women's champion in WWE. Talked about how she raised the bar, nobody else compares, and then Asuka confronted her with the championship. We had the Iconics come out for an in-ring promo. Peyton apologized for screwing up last week, causing that DQ. Billy, though, apologized as well for getting angry. They buried the hatchet, and they talked about how they've been overlooked and they should still be the champions and not that crazy girl and the office's favorite blonde, Alexa Bliss. Alexa and Nikki came out to confront the Iconics. Alexa said they blew their opportunities. And then Nikki cut this really passionate promo, good stuff from her, where she discussed coming to the country with nothing, unlike the Iconics that had each other. She was by herself, and Alexa was the one person that was there for her. So nice little promo here to further the bond between Alexa and Nikki. I liked it. Iconics ended up jumping them, laying them out, holding up the championships. So I'm guessing Backlash will see the greatest women's tag team title match ever. Actually, there's a decent chance it could be the greatest since there haven't been that many women's tag team title matches. We had Lana backstage, and she confronted MVP, who has been side by side with Bobby Lashley. She's very upset. She wanted to talk, and MVP said they don't need to talk and walked off. We had a VIP lounge. MVP gave a shout out to the PC trainers, introduced the soon-to-be former former Universal WWE Champion. I just totally screwed up there. My apologies. We're live, pals. The soon-to-be former WWE Champion. Finally got it right. Drew came into the ring, and he just flipped over the couches, the $200 Walmart couches. And he wanted to know where Lashley was because he felt he was being ambushed. MVP said, no, that's not the case. MVP, with a little history lesson, brought up the last time there was a VIP segment with Drew McIntyre. Drew ended up giving him the Claymore. And MVP realized at that moment two things. First thing, Drew would win the WWE title. And second thing, MVP knew that he was going to be the guy to help cost Drew McIntyre the championship, be a part of him losing it. Mr. Anderson with a $1 super chat, no comment. Thank you for that, Mr. Anderson. The two of these guys went back and forth, and Drew said that Lashley will have to pry the championship from his cold, dead hands. MVP said that can be arranged. And this led to Lashley coming out. And before Lashley could get into the ring, MVP got another Claymore, courtesy of Drew McIntyre. And there was a little stare down between the two of them, and Drew was just itching for a fight. He was trying to convince Bob the Lash to get into the ring, but Lashley, he decided to wait for a better opportunity. We had Natalya interviewed backstage, but before she could really say much of anything, she got this phone call from her husband, TJ, aka Tyson Kidd. Apparently he was upset that she did not say enough, and she told Tyson she was already apologetic. She did all she could do, and then she hung up the phone, went back to the interview, but they were out of time. You know, it was a 30-second interview spot, and she used her time to make a phone call. So that was that. I guess the slow burn heel turn for Natalya continues, and maybe we'll see something with Tyson Kidd in this storyline. We had Kevin Owens coming out for his match with Angel Garza, but he got jumped from behind by Garza. Garza went after the knee of Kevin Owens. There was a commercial break, and when we came back, we had a match between these two. Owens wanted the match, refused to call it off. Owens hit a senton and then went for the pop-up powerbomb, but his knee gave out on him, and Angel Garza hit the wing clipper to pick up the victory. And then Garza attacked Owens a little bit further after the match. This was fine, building up Angel Garza. I know some people are like, well, what are they doing with Kevin Owens? I mean, that's a valid question. You would think after beating Rollins, Kevin Owens would get a world title opportunity. But hey, biggest win for Angel Garza to date. So there you go. We had a recap of the Viking Raiders and Street Profits competition over the past few weeks. And this week we had a golf match. Viking Raiders brought some turkey legs, but no food was allowed. Vikings were making a mess of the place. They were throwing clubs around, throwing the balls, creating holes in the ground. And then they sat on the golf cart. They actually hit some other group of people, and those people got angry, so the Vikings wanted to escape. They sat on the golf cart, but their weight caused a flat tire, and they ended up getting kicked out of the country club. So they wanted to keep playing, but since you can't play golf anymore, you got to go to the next best thing, and that's miniature golf. Yeah. We had a miniature golf game between these guys, and the Vikings were causing issues again, but the woman worker there let them off the hook because, well, she thinks that Ivar is cute. Eric, not so much. So this is the new running joke. Every week, some woman is going to find Ivar cute and Eric not so cute. They continued their game, and then the scores were revealed. Vikings were celebrating. They thought they won because they had the higher score. However, in mini golf, of course, it's the lower score that wins. Ivar then started pulling items out of the hole, including a turkey leg. And then a gator showed up. This was pretty bizarre. But I will say, of the three segments, this was my favorite one. Just because I like the miniature golf stuff. We did a skit like this way back in the day. Probably few, if any of you remember, when we were doing XMV. We did our own little miniature golf segment. I know Jeff Meacham remembers it fondly. So I had a little bit of appreciation for this. We had Lana bringing some ice to MVP because MVP got that Claymore, and MVP was not amused. He said they got to send a message back to Drew McIntyre, and then they took off, and Lana got upset again. Hey, Jeff Meacham, good old JM, he is here. He heard my comment. He sent in a $3 super chat and says, miniature golf, yeah, bitch, 2004, yeah. There you go, a little throwback to the 5 people that remember that. Keith Johnson with a $2 super chat says, Eric can be the leader of the ugly faction. Oh yeah, because somebody had asked me about that, the possibility of an ugly faction in WWE. Eric could be the leader of that group. We had a tag team match, players. Aleister Black and Humberto against Austin Theory and Murphy. Almost called him Buddy. Humberto missed his moonsault, and he got hit with the ATL from Austin Theory. Austin Theory picked up the win. They continued the attack after the match, and then they set up Humberto. They were going to use the steel steps and stab him in the eye like they did to Rey Mysterio. Aleister Black got a steel chair, and Rollins was instructing Black to not get any closer, or they were going to take out Humberto's eye. And Rollins made a threat. Don't force him to make the same sacrifice that he had to make with Rey Mysterio. And then at that point, Rollins, Murphy, and Theory took their leave. Interesting segment here. I mean, good showing from the Disciples. the Seth Rollins disciples picked up a win here. This was fine. Edge did a backstage promo. Talked about how Randy Orton laid the bait and he bit it. But now he's doubting his ability. He's not sure if he can compete with Randy Orton in the greatest wrestling match of all time. Because he watched the last ride and heard what Undertaker said and what he said about retirement. Edge talked about how over the years he adapted to everyone's styles. But that was the past. And now he doesn't know if he can still do it. However, at Backlash, in the greatest wrestling match ever, he will dig into the depths of his soul to try. Pretty good promo here from Edge. I liked it. Not his best one since coming back, but I did think it was good. We had the Viking Raiders backstage with the Street Profits. I guess they made it back to the arena. The Vikings issued a challenge for next week, I presume, bowling, which is another thing, funny enough, that Jeff and I did back in the day as an XMV skit. That'll be fun. MVP then showed up and talked about how the Street Profits are another act that are being wasted, not reaching their fullest potential, and a challenge was made for the main event. Street Profits versus Bobby Lashley and MVP. We had a triple threat match. Charlotte versus Nia Jax versus Natalya. Asuka was out there on commentary. She was funny as usual. We had a spot where Nia Jax got double powerbombed by Charlotte and Natalya. And Asuka ended up tossing Nia back into the ring to finish the match. That was awfully nice of Asuka. Charlotte hit her moonsault, could not put away Nia Jax. Charlotte put the figure eight on and might have tapped out Nia, but then Natalya broke it up. There was a big Tower of Doom spot with the three of them, and then Natalya tried to pin both of them, but in the end, it was Nia Jax coming back and hitting the Samoa drop on Natalya to score the 1-2-3 victory and secure her match at Backlash against Asuka. I thought this was a pretty good match. I thought it was very solid. Even though I figured the result was obvious, I still think it was a really good match with the ladies here. So, thumbs up for them. I enjoyed it. Drew McIntyre was backstage. He was on his way out of the building, but then he found out about the tag team match and decided to stick around. We had an R-Truth promo from his home talking about the 24/7 title. He still wants his baby back from Gronk. And then Rob Gronkowski did his little response to R-Truth. Looked like he cut his promo in a gym. Said that he was totally down with another match with R-Truth. Said R-Truth could bring it on. And he's going to have eyes in the back of his head. So unfortunately for me, looks like we're not seeing the last of the 24/7 title. Boo. We had a Ric Flair pre-taped promo to hype up the greatest wrestling match of all time. Said he's seen a lot of great matches. But since he's retired, Randy Orton has become the greatest performer in WWE. And therefore, Ric Flair's predicting Edge to lose to Randy Orton in the greatest wrestling match of all time at WWE Backlash. We had a Liv Morgan pre-taped promo. Talked about how life keeps changing, all the questions, but she's still alive and she's going to fulfill her destiny and she's living her best life. It was fine. It was fine for what it was. I liked the last week's promo better. but that's just me. We had our main event, the Street Profits versus Bobby Lashley and MVP. Street Profits seemed a little bit more energetic now that they had some people to play off their entrance with. And the fans were very much behind the Profits. However, wasn't enough to overcome the Destroyer Lashley, the Almighty. Lashley hit he put on the full Nelson to submit Montez Ford. He would not let go, though. And that's what led to Drew McIntyre coming back out. And a fight broke out between these two. Referee was losing control, so the referee brought in some of the trainees from the ringside area to try and stop this. They got beat up, and then more trainees came in and tried to separate the two. And this is when, as TJS mentioned earlier, we had our pull-apart brawl. First one in a while. I would say they could have had all the trainees do the whole let them fight chant, but they were all getting beat up. I found this quite interesting because the whole idea of the show was to have the social distancing. The NXT/trainees were keeping 6 feet apart from each other, but then at the end of the show, they're all getting in the ring and there's like 10 of them trying to separate Lashley and Drew McIntyre. I'm feeling like the whole separation and the plexiglass was for show, just to set a good example to people watching at home, practice social distancing and keep it safe. It's amusing to me that they all were touching each other at the end anyways. And I mean, everybody was tested. So, I mean, there shouldn't be any concern about somebody passing the virus to somebody since they were all tested and nobody tested positive. Although I guess you could have a false positive. The legendary Mike B with a $5 super chat says, here's a donation for the cats of No DQ, Sassy and Casey. Buy them some treats for me. Will do, Mike B. You guys can check out the cat videos. I do make cat videos. Might be something you did not know about me. YouTube.com/AaronRift or AaronRift.com will take you there. And Brian Spencer with a $5 super chat. Thank you, Brian. He says, I'm no Nostradamus, but I'm going to predict that none of the matches are going to be the greatest of all time. Got to have a little bit of faith, my man. I mean, that women's tag team title match, it legitimately could be. I mean, there's only been like a half a dozen women's tag team title matches. So statistically, they got a 20% chance at best of being the greatest women match of all time. Now, if you add Kurt Angle to the mix, the chances drastically go up because Angle just makes everything more entertaining. A little bit of Steiner math right there. The game is on 100 with a $5 super chat says, I think R-Truth gets the 24/7 title by showing up at the Tampa training camp, preseason, or an actual NFL game. Would not shock me if something like that goes down just so WWE can get that publicity. Whatever they can do to get people talking will likely be what happens with the 24/7 title. Got a $5 super chat from a good man, Hamp. $5 says, will it be the greatest women's title match of all time at Backlash? Nia Jax versus Asuka. You know what? I'm going to have a positive attitude. Yeah, it will be the greatest wrestling match of all time in the women's division. But the greatest match of all time for the men, no doubt, will be Edge versus Randy Orton. The greatest match of all time. And WWE did announce for next week, perhaps it will be the greatest retirement of all time. Rey Mysterio is apparently retiring. after being stabbed in the eye via the steel steps and Seth Rollins. We'll see if Rey Mysterio pulls a Mark Henry next week. So that was Raw, everybody. Good show overall. And I think the Performance Center people being there definitely helped with it. Gave the show a little bit more life than it's had the past several weeks. So yeah, I enjoyed Raw. Maybe the best Raw since the pandemic happened. Got going. I mean, I'm going to give this show a B. Good Raw overall. I did like it. What did you guys think in the chat room? Give me your letter grade for the show. Mr. Anderson with a B. Mike B with a B minus. Anthony says AEW did it better. More faves with a D plus. The plus for Garza. Ouch. Michael Wayne with a B minus. TW with a B minus. Luis Ortiz with a B. And Shaddy Snake with a C. Noah Foster with a C. TJS with a C minus. And Matt Helms with a B. Hamp Kano with a $2 super chat says, Raw tonight gave me the greatest nap of all time. So, looks like not everybody was impressed with Raw. Maybe I'm giving it a little bit higher rating than it deserves, but I did find myself more entertained by it than usual. And the Street Profits Viking Raiders segment was not as cringy as usual. So maybe my expectations have lowered so much that I'm giving WWE a break. Ken Terminated by Google with a $5 super chat says, shout out to Drew Gulak for getting his job back, and Barry Bloom helped out Jesse Ventura's lawsuit to Vince and helped out Gulak get his job back. Well, that has not been confirmed by WWE, but apparently Drew did participate at the SmackDown TV tapings, and the word is that Barry Bloom, now for those of you that don't know Barry Bloom, he is a guy that has been representing a lot of wrestlers over the years. And I guess Drew Gulak hired him for his contract negotiations, and apparently it worked. They got him a deal to bring him back to TV. So good for Drew Gulak. Happy for the guy. And DJW with a $2 super chat, thank you for that, says, hey Aaron, how do we send questions in for no DQ&A video? Twitter.com/AaronRift. Use the hashtag PAIV so I can see your question. And Psycho Jet Black with a $5 super chat, thank you Psycho, says, what does Brian Cage, Wardlow, Luchasaurus, and Lance Archer have that Jackson Riker is missing? Also, the greatest shit is WWE, or the greatest shit is EC3's WWE career. Man, you're so mean to EC3. Like, Psycho Jet Black has to go down as the number one EC3 hater. But anyways, regarding Jackson Riker, I don't know. I just feel he has a generic look. Okay wrestler, but nothing really stands out. Brian Cage is a freak. I mean, the guy has a freakish build to him, and he's pretty athletic for a guy his size. Wardlow, I mean, we haven't seen much from him, so it's hard for me to really make a solid judgment on him. I mean, he looks pretty intimidating, but we haven't seen a lot other than that cage match with Cody. Luchasaurus, I think, has a great look. Way more interesting look than Jackson Riker. And Lance Archer, big guy. For him, he had a pretty good match with Cody at the pay-per-view. I do like him, and I think Jake Roberts being there with him helps. Without Jake, I think he'd be struggling a little bit more. But yeah, of all of them, I think Jackson Riker is the least interesting character. Just doesn't have anything that really stands out to me, in my opinion. But thank you for that super chat. Thank you guys for tuning in tonight. I really do appreciate it. And tomorrow night, another No DQ&A video coming up. So tune in for that, 7 p.m. Eastern. And then rest of the week, we got AEW, NXT recaps, No DQ review, SmackDown, more No DQ&A video over the weekend. So stay tuned, subscribe, tell a friend, help rebuild this dead channel. I can only do it with the help from you guys. So spread the word, spread the love, stay safe, stay positive, and I will see you guys